Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to Commerce Rewired, episode 9. I'm going to kick off the day with thanking our sponsors first, Kit and Ace. I'll say it slowly for the AI, Kit and Ace, because it always puts the text in as Kitten and Ace. And then also thanks to our sponsor, Cattle, who provides us with great data and insights for the industry in the Canadian market. So thank you to both partners. Really appreciate your support right off the hop as we get things going. Today, I'm excited that we're going to be covering the topic of headlines, what's going on in the marketplace. We're going to try to do this on a quarterly basis going forward. So that way, we're always just talking about relevant opportunities and issues in our marketplace. And I think it will be great value for the community to be able to chime in, put some comments in the video, and be part of the dialogue and the conversation. So with that said, our first topic is about Loblaw. Loblaw is really committed to investment expansion, store automation, supply chain opportunities. And what's really exciting with what they're doing this in a time where other people are maybe pausing or even cutting back. And we've seen
Mhm.
this time after time with Loblaw over the years, where they're going and swimming upstream when everyone else is swimming downstream and trying to protect their business. So, Tara, I see you nodding your head a lot. Let's jump in with you on this great topic.
Yeah, I think Loblaw has been a leader in capital investment for years and years. Where going into the pandemic, everybody kind of froze and got paralyzed. Loblaw really was investing. I think they're one of the digital leaders across all retail, not just grocery. Their investment in supply chain and automation has been incredible. I would say that they could compete in the Amazon worlds. They do such incredible things. So I think it's really they're a brand that we need to watch as retailers, a brand that continues to invest in the right things that are delivering for the customer. And I would say what they did in the last 3 to 5 years is what is allowing them to invest and grow in such a tough economy.
Yeah, and first off, Chris, just so people know, Chris is the host here. I think everyone wants to hear his opinion, but Chris is also editing this thing. He's making sure we're on screen, making sure we're recording. He's got a lot to do, but at the end of the day, Chris, people want to hear what you have to say too. So don't belittle that point. On the Loblaw front, I'm going to read out some numbers here. Loblaw is spending $2.4 billion in renovations this year and next. 70 new stores are opening in 2026. 34 of them are going to be Shoppers Drug Mart in the rest of Canada, Pharmaprix, Quebec. 31 of them are going to be No Frills in the rest of Canada, Maxi in Quebec. And 91 stores are going through renovations. That's like a exclamation point. Like when, Chris, you mentioned it, when people are kind of clamoring and holding their coin and making sure, we get over the tariff situation and the currency situation and now the oil situation, supply chain, Loblaw is going full in. And kudos to them. They also have an amazing loyalty program, Optimum. I think more people are not members than are members. And it's great to see this Canadian company just continue to grow and change. We've all, being in the industry, we've all walked into stores and be like looking around and be like, I don't know how long this store is going to be here anymore. And when you walk into a Loblaw, it's like you can tell they're in this, they're invested in, and it's great for Canadians to see this.
It's great. And I always thought about this when I see retailers do it as, do you feel that we get into job protection mode when the economy's tough, and instead of looking for future growth and investments, we're there to protect, especially at the higher levels. You're there to protect. We got to deliver some results today, even if it's not the top line, it's the bottom line. And it forces us to make decisions that we probably wouldn't have, because we do get into this kind of, I want to be here for a long time. So instead of doing what's right for the future, I'm going to do what makes us look okay right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. 100, you
Hmm.
you see that, like, even on the digital marketing side, right? It's like, oh, we need to maintain this ROAS. Even though the profit's great and the sales are great, it's like, no, we have to stick to this ROAS because we need to stick to this budget, right? Even if $1 is making $7, like, we can only spend $19 this month, right? Like,
Right.
it's that
Hmm.
mentality. And I think we should learn something from the US neighbors on that sometimes, where it's like, we all say, oh, budget is agile. In Canada, like there's a lot of hurdles to make that budget agile.
Yeah. And Chris, I totally agree. I think that people aren't eliminated for not making decisions. They're eliminated for making bad decisions right now. And nobody wants to take the risk. No one wants to, be out there testing and learning. When we were building websites and launching digital marketing, test and learn, failure, fail fast was all rewarded. I don't think that's the case in the environment in retail right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the other piece I think of when I see companies doing this is the companies that really understand lifetime value are the ones that continue to invest because they know coming out of these tough times that they're not going to have just a 2-3% increase. They're going to have double digit increase because they've got market share now versus the ones that go into protection mode. Let's slow down on our marketing. Let's slow down on our acquisition. Let's just make sure that we're maybe getting more dollars from the suppliers that cover our loss. Those are the ones that it's much harder because they actually lose true shoppers and true customers making transactions later on.
Yep.
So, great. I'm glad this time I stayed on topic. We're
Focus.
we're gonna jump
Focus.
into topic two, and I love being able to joke around with you guys on these podcasts because we're gonna come up with a blooper reel, and it's gonna make everyone have to lose their coffee in the mornings. Topic number two: trust pricing pressure in Canada. There's a brief that the Canadian customers are increasingly questioning pricing, value, and product origin. Maybe the media coverage is highlighting this. I think this has been going on for a while, not just in this market. I think we almost touched on it during Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Love to start with you, Johnny, this time on this topic of the pricing, especially when it comes to groceries and other items.
Yesterday I went to put gas, and it was $2 a liter, and I get the plus gas, so it was like $2.25. And then I needed to buy something later on Amazon, and I said, you know what, maybe I'll wait. Right. And I feel like that's what's happening now with consumers in
Mm.
Canada, especially. 87% of Canadians are changing how they buy in terms of looking at labels a bit closer. Where is this product from? Are there promos? Is it part of a loyalty program? Can I get a coupon? And then it's interesting to note, like this one caught me off guard. 75% of Canadians prefer to buy locally in terms of food. 62%, though, will choose a cheaper supplier. So there's this want of like, no, I'm going to support Canada, but not one at this cost. I think it was either garlic. I think there was a product of garlic I once saw. It was like from Canada. It's like $3.99. From China, $1.99.
Mhm.
That's what's happening now. People are going to go for that cheaper product, and it's hard to blame them, right? We're all kind of in this world where a lot of things are getting more expensive. Not much is getting cheaper. So it's changing buying patterns for sure.
Mhm. I really and I feel like there's an element of consumers questioning not the value, but they're questioning these markups. They're questioning these price increases. They're questioning the brand and the integrity of the brands when they're going to shop. And I'll admit, in my house, I'm not the grocery shopper. Sometimes I go, and then when I get that bill and I'm like, "Are you kidding? This costs this? Stop buying that then." Like I am like you, Johnny. There's a decision that's happening of what we're purchasing now, and I truly would love to support local, but sometimes, if I want some tomatoes and they're $17 and I can go to No Frills and get them for $5, I mean, it's a choice. But I think the big thing with consumers is they're really pushing back on the brands and trying to understand how is this going up 300% and how, because nobody's, putting in fuel surcharges and importing and tariffs when they're thinking about their dinner that night, but they're certainly feeling it.
Yeah, I agree. And don't you guys, and I don't want to move the opportunity for us to be better merchants away, but I do think there's some government responsibility in this as well, where we keep taxing the fuel.
Yeah.
And if the farmers have to spend more, it just trickles down to everybody else. But I do think there's absolute responsibility on the retailers to get smarter, to look at their promotions and just be like, during a period of time, do you want to play that high and low game? Or do you maybe
Mm.
just want to be more consistent so customers feel a little bit of, okay, I know every week that I'm going in here, this is the cost of eggs, and I don't have to be shocked one week when it's up and then hope 2 weeks that it goes back down again.
Yeah, that's the game. And I think going back to that first point on like people being hesitant to make change, there's a certain margin that everyone is told they have to hit by category.
Yes.
And right, it's driven from, like, if we're talking about food, it's driven from grocery or, gas stations, oil companies. And there's a certain margin that they have to hit, and then it goes backwards, and there's certain costs that might increase. And that's where that pricing place. And unfortunately, like consumers take the hit, and governments I would love to see a government step up and say, you know what? We understand this is all happening. Maybe we can't control the price of eggs or the price of this or the price of that, but we can control taxes. We can lessen an income tax for a period of time. We can do something along those lines, because at some point something's got to give. Like, people are not spending more into the economy. It's hurting businesses, and it goes further and further. So I would love to have them step up and say, here are other ways we can save for Canadians.
The reason I brought it up is that the GST on gas is a percentage that you collect, and the higher gas goes, the more governments collect. So clearly the government has a budget of how much it wants to make off of the pumps. So I think there is an opportunity for a short period of time to adjust that tax, because should they be capitalizing on the pain that the consumer is having? And I know it's hard, and I'm not saying these are easy solves, but I think going through this year after year after year, because it's always ebbs and flows, there has to be a playbook on these things that is a little bit easier to go and execute.
Yeah, like you see the jet fuel surcharge, right? Air Canada's at 50. Porter and WestJet are at different amounts. I feel like it's 45 and one might be 35. Everyone's at a bit of a different amount. It'd be nice if someone opened the books and said, like, here's the amount, right? Like,
Right.
this isn't a pass through. Like, they're making money on that fuel
Mhm.
surcharge, right? I think everyone can
Yeah.
agree it's 50 times how many people are on that plane. Like, it's not a pass through. Like, they're making money, and then, like, to your point, Chris, like, then there's taxes on that potentially, when you buy that ticket. So yeah, I would love for them to step in and kind of have all these airlines maybe open the books and say, no, here's the pass through, because it's temporary. A
Right.
surcharge is temporary, should be. Now what happens?
Isn't that the funniest thing, is to add to a customer's bill? That can be
Yeah.
done overnight, but to give some relief to customers, that's a 2-month conversation.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yes.
All right, on to another topic. Canadian Tire and WestJet partnership. They've partnered on a loyalty program. Let's dive right into that. Tara, do you want to kick this one off for us?
You know what? I'm always impressed with Canadian Tire. I'm always impressed with the visionary. The steps that they're taking are so incredible. So it makes sense to me to expand their loyalty into travel. It makes total sense for me. And all of their moves this year have been quite impressive. I think we're starting to see a shift in the loyalty world. Right. I almost see it that loyalty is going to start to dictate where and how we shop. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm going to switch from Air Canada to go to WestJet to collect my points, but I think that loyalty, you think back to the days of Air Miles where, every brand, every retailer had Air Miles and that's where we went. I see loyalty becoming more of the decision making tool that consumers are going to use when they choose who to fly with or where to shop.
Yeah. So one, being a former Canadian Tire employee, I love this. And I was there when Triangle was launched. I was working at Mark's
So
in
good.
Calgary when Triangle was launched. So I love it. I got to sit in these meetings, and it was amazing to see this growth and be like, no, it can't be that big. And then it ended up being that big. There's 3 loyalty programs right now in Canada, like major ones, right? There's Optimum, right, which is the Loblaw Group. There's Aeroplan, which is Air Canada.
Mhm.
And then there's which is Canadian Tire. And I would imagine 2/3 of Canadians have all of these probably. And it's interesting because Canadian Tire, which is Sport Checks, Canadian Tire, Sport Check, Marks, L'Équipeur, Sport Experts, Trio Hockey, Russo Sports. Then they align with Petro-Canada on the gas front. I believe Husky as well. They have their own gas stations. And now they have a travel partner. And this is a really stab at Air Canada, right? Going to WestJet. The other thing that people might not know is WestJet is headquartered in Calgary. Marks and SportCheck are headquartered in Calgary. So there's a big Canadian Tire Corporation team in Calgary. So it aligns nicely there. And I'm sure, some employees have changed over and there's some good tie-ins there. And then Aeroplan has aligned with Journey Rewards, which is like Chevron, Ultramar groups. Everyone's kind of with different gas partners and now with different travel partners. It's interesting. I don't think Loblaw has a travel partner yet. I might be mistaken, but it's, retail, gas, and travel, big levers. And Terry, you're right. Like, maybe it might not push you to buy things on WestJet, but what's interesting about this points program is that you can go into Canadian Tire store buy with your Triangle card, but give your WestJet number and collect points, and vice
Mhm.
versa for WestJet or Sunwing. WestJet bought Sunwing flights, so same thing where you can use the WestJet card, but also collect points with your Triangle. So really, almost like a double dipping here for non-competing products. Which so I'm happy. We've talked about consumers not getting extra. This is one opportunity
Yeah.
they get extras. So big fan of this. So kudos to my old pals at Canadian Tire. I love what you're doing.
Mhm.
We'll add that there's another program that I see is getting momentum, and maybe I just became way more aware of it because of my experience at home, and that's the Scene program. And the Scene program actually just did a partnership with Shell, and so there you go, Johnny. Again, retail, then gas. They're with Sobeys as well. So maybe there's a travel opportunity coming down the pipeline for Scene soon, because that seems to be the evolution. So we should keep an eye on that. Maybe we'll look back
Mhm.
at this video in a year from now and say, "Told you so."
Yeah, and I wonder if Scene latches onto one of these three,
Right?
Mhm.
right? Like that could be the
Agree.
play, because then you expand from whatever a couple of million to 20 million, right? It could be the play, especially that if it's non-competing.
Yeah. Yeah. The other part that I just wanted to touch on was the turnaround over the last 20 years of Canadian Tire, and how we used to call them in the industry a crappy tire. And now there's no way, like, the younger people wouldn't even know what we're referring to at this point, because their in stocks are great. Their aisles are clean. Their stores, have you been in some of their new stores? They have help buttons and you can get access to an associate so fast. They have curbside pickup. They have all of these things, and their loyalty program, as you guys have just talked about, is so strong. Like, what a turnaround for a brand. And it's just, to be a Canadian brand at that, doing this stuff, it's like you have a lot of
Mhm.
pride in them.
Mhm.
I went to change my tires last week at Canadian Tire, and one of the renovated ones near my home, and they have a garden center. And so I was with my daughter, and we're walking, and there was a fish tank pond in the garden center. So there was fish in there, and there was those big Canadian lawn chairs. And my daughter's like, "Do you want to just sit?" And we like literally just sat in the garden center watching the fish while people came in. I was like, that, what a renovation, right? We talked about
Yeah.
stores and renovating and how it keeps people engaged, and it
Mhm.
definitely did. And we're like, oh, that would be nice in the backyard. That would be nice in the backyard. So yeah, it's really, really, really cool to see that. The other thing about Canadian Tire, and you mentioned your love, people forget, but in Quebec, having a name like Tire, which is not a French name, is very, very contentious.
Mhm.
Canadian Tire has a really, really, really great relationship with Quebecers, with the Quebec government. They do it. They build those relationships. They build grassroots programs, whether it's hockey or soccer or sports or whatever else. They have a really good relationship. And, it kind of goes unnoticed in some ways, but that's a big thing, because even the Bay had to change to La Bay, right? So
Mhm.
there's certain things that had to change, and they were loved. And Canadian Tire does it over and over. And like you said, it's hard to find a bad word about Canadian Tire right now. Like everyone
Yeah.
loves their stores and their brand.
Yeah, they've moved so far beyond crappy tire, and it's funny because when I think of Canadian Tire, it's all nostalgia. I mean, we all used to collect the Canadian Tire money. Every parent, like when we were growing up, collecting the Canadian Tire money and seeing the stack, even though it was only $2, but the stack was this big. Like that was loyalty, and being that, I mean, I'm in a small area, a rural area. I know my Canadian Tire people by name. I know them by name. I trust them. Like they still deliver the experience while being a beacon in the digital, like in the digital space and the loyalty space and the brand space, but they still focus on customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I miss the old jokes where you could take their money into the US and spend it as Canadian dollars. I thought that was a great legend. I don't know if people actually got away with it, but I would love to try that today.
Yes.
And then to touch on what you guys have been already hinting at, which is Canadian Tire launches the HBC brand in a product line. And again, for them to step up at that time and save at least the brand, if we could not save those stores, what a bold move.
So smart, like so smart. And when you think about what they're creating, that's all private brand. Like that's all private labels. So they're actually delivering margin at the same time as kind of pulling at the heartstrings of Canadians. Their leadership is incredible because they see things years in advance that we're not seeing as consumers. But this HBC brand is going to go far for them.
I hope so. I hope so. Right? It's a big nostalgic. or nostalgia
Mhm.
play. And Canadian Tire made, they put a line in the sand, and their campaign, their tagline, their mission was for life in Canada. They really embraced that with buying, or the brand of the Bay. Like that's huge, because if you have like a top 5 list of Canadian iconic brands in your head,
Mhm.
those two are on there. Canadian Tire and the Bay are on there, right? So it's so cool to see it. Who knows what happens? Who knows if this is a success, if customers are going to embrace it? But I think just for trying, like, they get an A for effort on that end.
Yeah, I agree. And as I'm sitting here listening to this, I'm thinking I saw a feature on this editing tool to add in B-roll. Maybe I'll give a go at adding in some images of the Hudson and Bay product line. I don't know. I might delete the whole video if I do this. So I'll be careful, but it would be great to be able to show some of these great images of the patio sets that they have out. If not, just go to their press release. It might be safer for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. I say hire a professional.
Right? Gosh. Next topic, Sale. One of my favorite stores, Sale acquired
Oh,
by 3 members of its leadership team. What I loved about Sale was during COVID, we couldn't really do much and interact with people. So I took up fishing. It was the one thing my son and I could get out and go do. We had enough space away from everybody, and it became an addiction. And so did Sale. There's a saying that you actually sell more lures to the fishermen. That's the joke, because every fisherman wants every color and every design, and it actually doesn't make a difference. When I do my fishing, I catch most fish on a red hook. So it's just it just becomes a collectible. But I love to dive into this story. I'll start with you, Johnny.
What struck me about that is, are we going to see more leaders at companies step in to buy the place they work? Whether it's retail, whether it's a brand, whether it's a gas station, whatever it is, right? Are we going to see that more often? Because we've seen that now, right? In the like this year in
yeah.
Canada, we've seen a president or a CEO or someone on the exec team come in and with a group and buy it from private equity or from old brand owners or older brand owners. So I wonder, like, that's when I saw that again, I'm like, this might be a trend where you're inside your organization, it A to Z. Your next step is like, I'm either going to another brand to work, or I don't like something that's happening. What if I buy it and change it? Like, if you think of the companies we worked at, right? If there was an opportunity to buy, you'd be like, I can fix that, right? I'm leaving because I can't fix it. They won't let me fix it. But I salivate over that, because it's really exciting to do that. If you're a CEO and be like, what, maybe I can buy this. And we know, like David Louis at Kid and 8, like, he's a good example of that with Joe Mimram and the group that they have with Frank, and kind of getting together and saying, hey, we can buy this brand, and then we'll be the CEO. I really like what they've done as a group. But those are my thoughts on Sale. It kind of sparked something
Mhm.
else in me.
Mm. I agree. I'm seeing it more and more, and I think it is this executive view. They see the value in the business and how successful it can be. What I love about this story is that it's 3 C-suite executives purchasing it, and 3 women, like 3 female executives. So Isabelle LeMay is their CEO, previous CFO. She's incredible, has an incredible story, and their head of marketing and their current CFO. So 3 women are stepping forward to purchase, an indie brand with great potential in Canada, but I'd say across the world. So I'm really excited to see where they're going with it. But I do think there's a bit of a shift, right? Private equity pulls out, management executives, leaders step in, and I think we're going to start to see a few brands really start to perform.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's great. I think it's great for the industry. I think it's
Yes.
sometimes, private equity comes in and they have a certain financial threshold, but they might not know or love that business. Whereas if you've
Yeah.
spent 3 or 4 years at this business as CFO, CMO, CTO, like, the ins and outs, you have a passion for this business, and all you're missing is maybe a bit of money, right, to go in and purchase that. And that's the big thing
Mm.
in Canada, is like, where do we get these investments? But it happens more and more.
I'll tell you, I've already had, the dream of buying Toys R Us Canada. My goodness. That brand, I mean, talk about nostalgia. Johnny, if you have any extra money hanging around, let me know. Jump on it.
Yeah, mine's tied up in non-alcoholic wine right now.
Yeah, I would love to be there with you, Tara, but I spent a lot of money producing a book last year. Still trying to make that money back. It's funny.
And
Everyone
moving
thinks,
cross country.
Yeah, so moving cross country, which just a few days away from a brand new home and a wonderful studio. So excited about that. With sale, what I really enjoy about that whole shopping experience is there's a lot of treasure hunt there. When you go in, it's seasonally correct. You've got
Mhm.
these great, unique items. It keeps you going back. You don't have to just wait for a sale to get it. You don't have to
Get
wait
it?
for a sale at sale. Man, oh man. My dad
Dad
is
joke.
rubbing off on me. My son actually said my dad is rubbing off on me. So with sale though, it is that treasure hunt. It is that kind of you can go every few weeks and see something new. You don't have to wait for things to go on a discount. It's just about that experience for your hobbies. And what a great way to go and socialize. And actually, I've met a ton of people there because we have the same passions and we talk about where's the greatest next fishing spot to go to. And everyone with the consumers are just like, if they could tap into that of how people connect in that experience that are strangers, I think they're going to be onto something special there.
Well said.
Agreed.
All right. The next topic is e-commerce is still winning through focus. And this is a story. It says US Wheels, but they're in Canada as well. They were just featured in an article, and the founder interviewed and had some highlights about his e-commerce categories and growth is happening through his niche positioning. He's not trying to be everything to everyone, operational discipline and customer clarity. And it's not just about ad spends, it's about that whole experience and that loyalty and then word of mouth happening for his brand. And I thought it was not a big retailer, but just someone that's doing it, I think, right in this moment. I don't know if you guys had a chance to dive into this one at all.
I mean, it's either you focus heavily on a niche or you expand and try to cover everything, right? And I don't know if there's a right or wrong, by the way,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like where, do you and we're not saying like compete against Amazon, right? We're just saying like even if we're talking about apparel, like do you focus on just jeans or do you add tops and underwear and socks and accessories, right? Or do you just become the best jeans player ever? Like it's not an easy question to answer, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if this is working for them, then this is what they know and they're really good at. It's amazing. The question is, like 2 years from now, does it come a time and say, hey, we have to expand our category because our
Mhm.
consumers are looking for it because
Yeah.
they're buying belts somewhere else. They're buying this somewhere else, right? And now that other place is selling good jeans or just to use that example. So I don't think there's a right or wrong, but I think there's a just for you.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think it's a it depends answer. It depends on your category. It depends on the competitors in your category. So I think there's going to be a lot of mid sizes that are going to be winning right now because they're able to focus on customer. They're able to be relevant. They're able to be a lot more agile, especially. I mean, we talk a lot about
Hmm.
AI and technology. Some of the bigger ones who have got broader scale, like their enterprise, they have store locations across the country. It's difficult to implement change and deliver growth, 0.5% growth there versus 25% growth on a small to mid. I mean, dollars are dollars, right? Like point 0.5 at Loblaws is going to be very different than, a 30% growth in a mid. So I think that there's going to be a lot of the mid-sized ones that are going to continue to see a good upward growth pattern for the next 2 to 3 years because they haven't hit that. But you're right, Johnny. They're going to hit the point where it's, and now how do I actually expand it?
You're
I
seeing it like a lot of like men's apparel going to women's slowly, and vice versa, right? It happens and it's normal. Like that's the next iteration of like, hey, we need to expand quicker.
Marx did
It'd
a
be
great
interesting
example
how
of that.
man-made's gonna do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man-made.
that would be an interesting one.
But
Yeah,
Mark's Work Warehouse was a great example of that, where they really focused on menswear, and then they brought into the female. And I think when I walk into some of the stores, it looks like 60% of the store now is female apparel versus the men's apparel. So what a
and
great
kids
example.
now. Yeah, and
And
kids
kids,
too.
yep.
Yeah,
Really
kids.
good example to shout that out because now it's kids too, and they made that decision, right? Men, and then we go on to women, bigger assortment. They're often shopping for their man, and now oh yeah, we have kids now, so they've added that
One
in.
stop
It's
shop.
great. Yeah, exactly.
I'll give a real life example with one of the things you talked about, Johnny, on expansion into other categories. Not even other categories. I had a business called Hockey Socks. It was a custom hockey sock for hockey players. It would protect you from a skate blade cutting your sock. I created this with a partner in Montreal, a great manufacturer. They still sell a ton of socks, but not these hockey socks. And I was selling $5,000 to $6,000 at a weekend of socks at a tournament, and it was quite successful. I mean, who wouldn't want a part-time job that you go and sell socks and your markup is 100% and you're making $5,000 to $6,000 on a weekend standing at a table? It was great. And as I was trying to expand this thing, I was getting so many requests from different people of different colors, different type of socks, different sizes. So I wanted to do what was right for the customers and what they were asking. I went and spent a ton of money. COVID hits. Now I'm selling nothing. And I've got all of these socks just sitting there. And then coming out of COVID, it was like I had a cash flow problem and had to
Mm,
then go back to work full time because of the cash flow problem. And then when you're working 60 hours a week, you don't have time to go and or the passion to go work again on the weekend. So I think you do have to flex small business, medium business, to find those right times. But the learning for me was don't put your cash flow at risk because then you're doomed. Then you have to make choices that are going to hurt you long term. All
Amen
right,
to
we're
that.
wrapping up here with like 30 minutes of a podcast. So I think we'll jump into one last topic here. I see we have the supply chain as a competitive advantage topic. I think it's a good one to jump into with Canadian retailers as the brief, continuing to invest in distribution centers, automation, fulfillment. Let's kick this one off. Tara?
I think it's going to become a new differentiator. When you can't compete on price, when you can't compete on assortment, especially in some categories where you live in a map world, the product's the product, your ability to fulfill faster, to have the right inventory, like supply chain is going to become a differentiator for a lot of brands. And those that can, do the automation that provides the convenience for the consumer, they're going to be the ones that win. They're gonna be the ones that, you know what, I know I can count on it pre-transaction, post-transaction experience. I think supply chain becomes kind of the competitive edge for a lot of brands in the next few years.
When we and one of the points too is on like distribution centers, like retailers kind of doing their own thing in some ways, right? Like automation through like doing their own fulfillment. And I always think if a warehouse or a distributor of some kind said, you know what, I want to open up retail, and they did it, they would likely fail, right? It's
Mhm.
it's it's a different avenue, and what I'm saying is I'm going to take the opposite position because I've seen this happen where people say, you know what, we don't do distribution, we're gonna take it on. We're gonna buy a warehouse, we're gonna do it all ourselves, we're gonna save 50 cents per piece. And then they do it and there's no cost savings, there's more employees to deal with, there's leaky roofs, and then they can't get they can't get the network of shipping costs down because they don't have the volume. Whereas, an outsourced distribution. So it goes back and forth. Like this happened 20 years ago. It happened 15. It happened 10. It happened 5 when robotics was like. So I feel like this is an ebb and flow. It's a conversation that we're going to continue to have. Which one is better? And again, it's more about the fit. And if you have a really, really strong COO or someone who heads up your operations, that's the main thing. Forget about you need to have, and ideally like someone that came from that world, supply chain, distribution,
Mhm.
warehouse. It's a different beast than just being like, we can save some costs if we do this internally. Think about the opposite, right? A supply chain or DC head going and being like, hey, we can start a retail store. Very different skill set.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. I've seen it work really well with home hardware and them running their logistics for 1,000 stores. But also I've seen it end up poorly for a company jumping into it and taking 3 to 5 years to figure it out. And hopefully you can
Oh,
afford
yeah.
those losses for 3 or 5 years. I think what's exciting to me, maybe not to everyone in the warehouse space, is the robotics coming into it. And that's going to make a difference because then you don't have to deal with the labor issues, the opportunities with people not showing up to work because you have that consistent robotics picking and packing of all of those items that the distribution center almost feels a little bit easier in the future. But it's like, I always think, and I wish our governments would start to have these conversations, is when robotics are replacing human jobs, I have an opportunity with that. I think they need to make jobs easier for humans, especially until you have a plan on where the jobs are going to go. So to me, that's a deeper conversation. Maybe it's an episode we dive into later on. But
Yeah.
let's try to wrap things up here. We're well into it today. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed the conversation. I like it because we get the riff on different things, different topics, stuff that's going on, and bring a little lens that each of us have from our experience. So thank you both for being here this morning. I'm looking forward to it. I think this week we got 2 podcasts. We get to interview. Actually, I'm not going to spoil it. You'll have to stay tuned for the podcast and see we have a great guest tomorrow that we're going to be interviewing. So looking forward to that. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Kit and Ace and Cattle. Appreciate it. Reminder that E-Tail's coming up. We're all going to be at E-Tail and looking forward to seeing you. DM us on LinkedIn, send us a message, comment on our videos, like and subscribe thing, because I know it helps the algorithm to get these things to more eyeballs. And have a great day, everyone.